Alright, so in this video it's going to be short and sweet. It's just a general blanket statement of what the basics of gameplay are. As I said before in the previous video, it melds three different genres of gaming together, um, but I try to keep it real simple. Basically, everything operates on a D10 system. So you'll need some D10 dice, and you'll need some sort of counters. I'll explain that later when I get into resources and everything. But everything operates on a D10 mechanic. Combat, magic combat, uh, even like hit point counts and all that good stuff, which again I'll get into that later in a different video. But I simplified everything down into a simple D10 mechanic. There is there are three different types of decks. I know that sounds a bit overwhelming, but it's not really. You have your main deck, your resource deck, and you have a no man's land deck that you have to and they all are made of different things, obviously. Um, One of the things that really sets this game apart from most card games that you play is you have movement to worry about. As you can see, the playmat is broken up into a grid system with different squares. Your units and generals and war machines, they all have their own individual like movement paces, which is how many spaces they can move, during their movement phase. So that breaks up the game pretty good, adds a huge element of strategy. The win con for War of the Vales is you start the game with your two generals, and if you lose both generals, that's it. You lose the game. That's the win con, is just to take the other person's generals and destroy them. As I said before in the first video, every faction is different. I have 9 different factions, plus the mercenary group, which, like I said, I don't really consider them a faction, but they're there nonetheless. I do have war machines, and there are structures that you can play. The deck sizes are pretty standard. Your main deck is a 50 card minimum, your resource deck is a 20 card minimum, and your no man's land deck is a 12 card deck. Again, I'll get into no man's land a little bit later. Um, there's I guess that's really about it as far as just what I wanted to get into with the basics of gameplay. It's pretty standard for um, a card game. You have your typical turn phases. If anything gets destroyed or you play a spell or whatever, it goes into the graveyard. You have resources that you need in order to, play your units and your spells, all that good stuff. So you'll feel right at home with that if you're used to playing pretty much any card game out there. Um, and again, with like the movement and the strategy involved in it, if you play war games, like tabletop war games, you'll feel right at home with that. And then just the overall like gameplay mechanics as far as the combat goes, the factions with having their own specific like bonuses and penalties, all that good stuff. If you play tabletop RPGs, you'll feel right at home with that, and then the other stuff it'll meld right on in there. So, like again, I hate to keep saying it. It sounds complicated, but it's not. If you have experience in any of the three that this kind of melds together, you'll do just fine. But yeah, that's a general overview of like the basics of the game and just kind of what there is. The next video, I'll get into like the actual setting up of the board, your turn phases, deciding who goes first, etc. So thanks for watching this, guys, and hopefully you'll watch the next one.